We'll get started.
Okay, good morning. Welcome, everyone. I'm Gretchen Bandy. For those of you that are not here, I'm filling in for Travis Shirley, who's out today. So we just got quorum, which is good news. And so we'll go ahead and get started and call this meeting to order. We'll recognize a couple of special guests. Judge Cannon is here, also Deputy Judge Executive Scott Lindsay, as well as we have Ben Dennison with NCM here today. So just as a housekeeping note, remind everybody, all the board members that are joining remotely, to keep your camera on so we can confirm votes and so forth as we move into action. So at this time, I'll turn it over to John for some opening remarks.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. It's thank you for joining us today. I just kind of marvel at it's already October. We just seem to be flying through this year. Welcome, Judge Cannon. Glad to have you join us this morning, as well as Scott, and then glad to see Ben back here. He spent some time with us this year doing audit, and he'll report out audit results here in a little bit. You know, all of our board meetings are, you know, they center on our 4 strategic goals. And what we've done over the last couple of years is we usually pick the October board meeting to really kind of center in on strategic goal number 4, which is our strategic goal that is really about, you know, our internal practices, providing good ROI on the federal dollars that we get. So you're going to get a heavy dose of kind of the boring stuff, which is kind of the internal workings of what we do today. So that's kind of my opening remarks. I'm kind of setting the table for the theme for today. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Gretchen for the next agenda item.
Okay, so our first order of business is to approve this September 8th board minutes. So hopefully everyone received those and had time to review. Are there any questions on those minutes before we proceed? Okay, if not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 8th board meeting?
Good morning, Gretchen. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, TJ.
I'll second. This is Cassie Seltzer.
Thank you, Cassie. Okay, so just as a kind of informational, the September Executive Committee was pretty busy. So some of the 5 agenda items we covered, kind of a summary of those. First, on general updates, John provided the executive committee general updates regarding the Kentucky Career Center certification process, the MCM CPA external audit, and their effort to revamp the South Central Workforce Development Board employee evaluation process. Next, executive committee received an update on the PY20 state comprehensive monitoring review. And at that time, it was almost complete. Now that the review is complete, John will cover those results in a few minutes. John also updated the executive committee on the results of the board internal monitoring for PY21, which covered the time period of July 21 through June 22. In late June, 2 board staff members randomly selected 30 case files to review, plus conduct some participant and staff interviews to gauge the strengths and weaknesses of our services. The internal monitoring team did find a systematic issue with reimbursing participants for supportive services expenses. This matter was addressed with career team, CFO, and has been fixed. The internal monitoring team also found that career team needed to locally strengthen their quality control procedures. This too has been addressed with career team executive director. The 4th agenda item was an overview of the plan to provide each of our 10 counties a detailed workforce update. The presentation provides an overview of the workforce system, how the workforce board supports job seekers and employers, and demonstrates spending details and staff hours. And I just want to take a moment and talk about that item, how much I do appreciate that. I was able to take a look at some of those in the past, and it really puts things into perspective, and it's nice to see the data backing up the activities you guys are doing. Lastly, the executive committee received an update on the workforce participation task force concept. Specifically, the audience was informed that the workforce participation lead job was posted on August 16th and closed on September 2nd. John conveyed that there will be 3 entities coming together to fund this new position, and they there remain several loose ends to tie up to solidify the funding employer of record. So that's kind of a summary of those things. So I guess we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, moving right along. So I want to take a moment to talk about the state comprehensive monitoring review. As I say frequently, we get audited quite a bit. I mean, every year the state comes, every year we conduct our own internal monitoring. Every week, Jessica Calvert, who is our quality control person, is always looking at compliance and files and making sure everything's the way it's supposed to be. But besides internal and besides what we're doing internally, the state comes down every year. It usually starts in late February, early March, and it runs about 5 or 6 months, but they come down and they look at our compliance, how we're doing our WIOA services. And then there's also a little bit of a financial aspect that they look at as well. And then we also have an external agency come in, MCM CPAs, and they're coming up next. So we're constantly looked at because we're managing federal dollars. There's a lot of do's and don'ts. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of compliance that has to be followed. So Brian, if you could go forward a slide. So just this is a little bit of a busy slide, but again, if you look to the left on the about, we started in late February. And the final report was issued on August 22nd. Between the beginning and the end, there's several back and forths where the state will say, here's what we initially found. We have our chance to respond, and then they'll come back in here and say, here's what we finally found, and we have a chance to respond. So it goes back and forth. A lot of times it'll come down to maybe a document didn't upload right, or it was missing, or there's a question about something, and we get a chance to kind of answer it and resolve it. Again, they're in the middle. The purpose of the monitoring, what I'll draw out is what's highlighted, and it's to make sure that we're operating in accordance with federal, state, and our federal and state guidelines, as well as our own local policy. In terms of the findings and observations. So again, this was broken down. I would say about 75% of this is looking at the program, the program monitoring, and about 25% of it's weighted towards the financial monitoring. But in terms of the programmatics, there were 2 findings that were identified. Both have been resolved. So one was a case notes, a violation of case notes policy, and this really was not something. It was really more of a technical issue with the system that we put it in. Every time we put a new case note in, it was changing it was updating the timestamp. So it would look like when we did a case note that there were no previous case notes. And so it's still a technical system issue today. It's at the state level, but what we've done is kind of modified, and we've modified how we're inputting that. We're making sure that every time we put a case note, we're putting in the date of the case note. We're not letting the system timestamp it for us because it's going to be wrong. So that, again, that's fixed, that's resolved. There was an issue around, there was one question, eligibility, and that one was kind of complicated, but the bottom line is that there was a question centering around somebody that was, did we make them eligible in the right space of time? And the answer is yes. The bottom line is we were missing a piece of documentation. Once we provided it, it kind of cleared everything up and resolved the issue. I don't know why they left it as a finding, because we did resolve it, but they did, and so this is, that one's behind us. Incomplete registration and key suites. So the findings are considered the more serious of the 2. Observations are like saying, hey, this is what you could do better. So we did have some observations around incomplete registration and case notes, and that was largely just kind of attention to detail and being a little bit cleaner in what we're doing. In terms of the financial findings, and Holly could speak to this a little bit better than I can. But they're all the financial transactions, all of that takes place and gets put into a reporting system called Works. And there was there was 1 month in particular where they didn't go in, you know, in the right time frame, and so that was a finding. But that's not a systemic issue. I think it was a one-off. Alan, you can, if I'm vastly wrong, please correct me.
No, I think probably that has due to because yes, the timings and sometimes the information you receive from a state, and so only that file you could upload. So I would say it's kind of hybrid issue with not getting a state report on a timely basis, and then re-uploading to meet the 19th of the month date kind of thing. So that was 1-2 days delayed because the team did not have the report back from the state on a timely basis. So it was again kind of hybrid because you cannot upload your own file. You have to wait from a state to okay a file, and then you can re-upload with the information updated.
Yes, thank you, Holland. So, you know, as is the nature with, audits, something's going to be found, right? I mean, when they spend 6 months looking at you, they're going to find something. All in all, I mean, I don't want them to find anything, obviously, but all in all, this is very light. The state was very, very pleased with this monitoring. By and large, we are doing things really well. There's obviously, we can always do better, though. We can always be a little bit cleaner in our case notes. We can always be, pay more attention to detail and be better at some of the programmatics and some of the financial piece. But by and large, this was a very good report from the state's perspective and from mine as well. Any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the next agenda item, and sticking with this theme of audits, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Dennison, who conducted this year's external audit.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm Ben Dennison. I'm the senior assurance manager out of the Lexington office for MCM. I was raised in Glasgow, so I know all your secrets. I do love coming back to Bowling Green. I've always loved Bowling Green. It was the only place to eat when I was a kid, right? Glasgow has no restaurants still. We still would always come here to eat. So it's cool to see it grow. If you go to the next page, Brian, one more, please. So this document is the management communication. It goes through all of our required communications with you guys. This shows the audit engagement team. This is everybody who served on your audit. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, call or email at your convenience. Go ahead, Brian, please. This page shows our responsibilities as your auditors and the management's responsibilities. My job as your auditor is to perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance, but not absolute assurance. John and his team are responsible for the financials, putting us to the financials, and the organization's control. As far as plan scope and timing, it went according to plans. There weren't any hiccups when we came out to do the audit. It went smoothly as scheduled. So there weren't any problems from the audit standpoint. If you go to page 7. The most important thing in this document is that second to last bullet point that talks about our independence. So myself as your auditor, my team, and my firm are independent of your organization. There's nothing that would impair that relationship and make us not independent of you guys. If that wasn't the case, we couldn't do your audit. We can do the second document now.
Okay.
You guys should read that, but I'm not gonna read all that to you. It's a lot to go through.
And if I could just, I should have mentioned this up front. So, Ben is doing a high level report to you, but we did have an audit committee. Our audit committee met several weeks ago and got the more detailed full report from Ben. And so after Ben kind of finishes up his piece, we're going to turn it over to TJ Shakti Hunt, who chairs our audit committee, and she'll give you her observations, and then we'll move it to a vote.
Sure. If you guys did have questions or want to go into more detail, you can call me, not a big deal. Go to the page that says independent auditor's report. It's like 2 down page. gets considered. So the second paragraph here under opinion, in our opinion, the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. So what does that mean, guys? That's a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance we can give you as your audit firm. So, you know, good job. That's what we want. That doesn't always happen. I'll go through some numbers real quick, not a deep dive. The management discussion starts on page 4, Brian, but if we go to page 6, shows a comparison of your net position. 2 more. Yep. You scroll down just a little bit, please.
Do what?
Scroll down just a little bit.
Oh,
please.
okay.
So this shows your net position as of June 30, 2022, compared to 21. Obviously, current assets are up quite a bit. There's a large cash increase there. You guys received additional WIA funding. Receivables, big increase there as well. Again, more WIA funding. And the foundation also received a grant, quite a bit of a grant that they hadn't received in the prior year. So overall, you're up, obviously, quite a bit. You see current liabilities are also up about 400,000. That's just timing of payables, and there's more activities in the grant, so you've got more expenses to pay. Go one more page, Brian. As far as the statement of activities, you see your grants are up about 700,000. It's the federal funding and WIA. Other revenues are up significantly. That's the foundation grant. Program expenses almost increased the exact amount of your operating grants. It's all the federal money. Admin's down. I think last year there was some equipment purchases that didn't repeat. And foundation expenses are up quite a bit for that second grant that they got. From a high level, guys, that's really it. At the end of this, there's a couple additional reports. I'm not going to go into detail, but since you guys get federal money, you do an audit of that, and that's a clear opinion on that as well. And since you're a governmental organization, we do an audit in accordance with those standards, and that was also unmodified. So overall, clean opinion, no problems dealing with John and John's team. Open for questions.
Yeah, before we go to our audit chair, TJ, are there any questions from board members or guests? All right, Miss TJ, our audit chair, I'll turn it over to you for your comments and observations.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. The audit committee met on 9/29. We met with Ben and Khalid and some of the workforce staff. John was there to review the entire audit, the documents, and to discuss. And upon review and meeting with Ben and reviewing the documents, we did move to endorse the audit findings or the audit results. I do think it's important to note that even though we did have increased revenue this year, that always leaves additional margin for error, right? The more funding we have moving through the pipeline, and yet we still maintained a clean audit. So I want to say thank you to the workforce board staff for that. And also I wanted to thank Ben and MCM for their work on our audit. And barring any questions that anyone has, I would like to recommend to the board that we vote to approve the audit results as presented.
Okay, so do any board members have any comments or questions regarding this before we set a motion? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Madam Chairman, I motion we approve.
Thank you, Mayor Curry. Do I have a second?
Robin will second.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on and look at the financial report. Colin?
Yes, good morning. I hope all is well. So we are presenting the financials for the first quarter, which is September. So I try to remind everybody that our fiscal year starts in July and year goes through June. So the first 3 months of the financials based on the GAAP accounting and accruals and all that stuff. So we're managing everything well. So the annualized budget, we are expecting this point $2 million and $87,043. So that's annualized what we know up to this point. The one thing about the funding for this year that we did receive 18 or 19% of our annualized funding from the state at this point. We are still waiting on the rest. And sometimes happens that we get more funding at that level as well. So the final numbers are not there yet, but this is based on what we know or what we have received kind of commitment and based on the previous results as well. So just want to let you all know that right now we have $2 million annual budget. Year to date revenue, $421,761. And you can see that we had spent or received, or at least booked the receivable for $536,000, which is better than for 3 months. So it's positive variance there. The expenses are the same thing. We are the sub-grantee career. We're working, there's a sub-grantee payments. That's the budget we have, $1.1 million for annualized for 3 months, 291, 429. And so we spent $329, but there's no risk there as well. Everything's under control. We can't bill until we have the dollar amount. So, but we have the billing. It means everything's secured at this point, what we know. For the board expenses, we have budgeted for $1,051,000. The annual year-to-date budget, 262, and board did very good job up to this thing of managing and maintaining it at the low numbers. So we spent $206,000 with the $55,000 quarterly saving. But the one thing it would go because some of the expenses may come in the future, later dates and all that stuff. But up to this point, our board is managing expenses very well. So overall, for the first 3 months, we have booked $536,000 revenue and booked $536 expenses. And the bottom line is zero. One of the things, because we are the cost reimbursement programs, so unless we receive some private funding, we can't have a surplus into the bottom line. So right now it's break even, no risk at this point, and we will collect that fund from the state after a few weeks, and therefore the financial situation is kind of positive at this point. No risk, what I see. Any questions, any concerns at this point? Not anything what I presented.
All right, if there are no questions, do I have a motion to approve the financial report?
Beverly Ford moves to approve.
Thank you, Beverly. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Cassie Seltzer.
Thank you, Patsy. Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
move right in to strategic goals.
Okay, good morning. My name is Brian. Welcome, workforce friends and allies. Thank you guys for carving out some time this morning. John said this is the boring theme goal out of the year. And what that means basically is, we're going to give you updates on all of the strategic goals that we have, but we won't be featuring really like client success stories as much. So hold a spot for the December board meeting because we will blow you away at that meeting and make up for not having as many client success stories here today. But looking at goal number one, this is the one themed around the service we provide to our employers. So we continue to have employer visits and engagements. In fact, we are fully staffed with our business services team and have been now for several months. And so that's giving us the capacity we need to be able to meet and be responsive to employers. We continue to have this, what we call Talent Tuesdays strategy, which is where we are bringing job fairs to each county and inviting the businesses in those counties, large and small, to participate, and as well as residents in those counties to come out. And this is expanding now. We're folding in the efforts that we started in the spring with doing on campus at SkyCTC job fair. So Matt is calling those the college edition Talent Tuesday. So we'll have the first of those this month, and that'll be a regular thing that we'll do. And we continue to open back up and reemerge from the pandemic with offering space at the Kentucky Career Centers for on-site hiring events as well and providing assistance. So in addition to that, our career team continues to expand and get new host sites to accept and receive the WIOA contracts and provide program services for individuals to be able to come in either kind of as an intern or to have their wages subsidized. If they're a bit of a, otherwise not meeting criteria right off the bat and the business might be incurring some risk, there's a way with our focus populations that we can subsidize that employment. So that's being expanded. We're adding more contracts there. Our goal is to have at least one in every county, and we're making headway with that. You will hear more later about our workforce collective planning that is going on. That's an event that's going to be geared and obviously getting employers involved. And then you'll hear more in a moment too about a special job fair that we're doing to reach out and engage new Americans, immigrants and refugees, one of our focus populations, and the businesses that have opportunities for them. So as we look at kind of the progress we want to make, the dot represents where we started the year. The black indicates where we were by the end of the first quarter of this year, and where we anticipate being by the end of the next quarter, which would be the end of this calendar year. So any questions? We'll move on to strategic goal 2. I'll pause for a moment there. So again, we just want to give you guys kind of the highlights and the main handful of things we're working on. So number 2 is about aligning and integrating career pathways and educational opportunities for youth, adults, and adult job seekers. So basically everybody that's able to work. So we continue to have, again, the hiring events, job fair strategies. Matt and his team have been working specifically with some leadership and a convened group in Butler County to look at how they can have a ongoing CDL and heavy equipment pathway. So that's being explored. Anna, our new American Workforce Navigator, who hit her 6-month anniversary with us here recently, has been doing presentations to upperclassmen at area high schools, folks that are English is not their first language. So we're providing reinforcements to the college and career counselors for those audiences. And then we've been working with actually a WEX, a work experience, one of those internship opportunities I just mentioned, individuals who is building a training directory for our region. So, part of the thing that happens is we have these great training opportunities, heavy equipment. You've heard us talk about that one all year. And that one's active at an area technology center, but CDL, we have EMT, we have other things going on, and some of these happen every month. Some of them are more intermittent. How do you know when they're happening? And we want to be able to put a tool at the fingertips of not just our staff and team, but the whole wider community, and really anybody working one-on-one with somebody to be like, okay, let's search, like, when's the next EMT? Where is it located? How much does it cost? Does it qualify for financial aid? This will be a great tool to put for, again, college and career counselors and anybody looking on their own. It'll sit on our website. That's about to launch. In fact, it's just like, it's not gonna have everything on there right like first day, but we're gonna invite any training providers. And I know we've got some on the meeting right now. We want to get people that provide these to upload them. And again, it'll just be searchable by location, by cost, by county, and as long as we keep it fresh with the most updated flyers and information that's out there, but it's going to be better than a flyer. It's going to really nail down and give some detail there. So we're really excited about that progress, and that's come from a Commonwealth Coders graduate, and so we will continue to help support the training recruitment of that training program, I should say, as we recruit for the spring semester for that, or spring cohort. And then Matt and his team are also looking into expanding the EMT training opportunities that we have. So we do have one, but we're needing to be able to offer that in a wider reach. And so he's in discussions, and hopefully we'll be giving you guys updates on that being available. So basically it's available. We're just trying to see if they can slot some people that can get funded by WIOA to participate. And again, where we think we're making progress on this, we're moving along, and I would say, we've made tremendous strides in goal number 2 this year, and in goal number 3, which we're getting ready to talk about, just with our reach and impact in the schools and with developing training programs. Any comments, questions, thoughts on that before I move to the next goal? Okay, you guys are ready for more. I can read the room. I can take temperature. All right. Strategic goal number 3, we are trying to increase workforce participation. And we have traditionally tried to do this through our focus population programming. And I like to call that our outreach and recruitment efforts. And so Again, we've been adding staff this year. If you haven't been able to catch a lot of our meetings this year, we've got somebody, Michael Daly, who's on the call that is sitting right now as we speak down in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, in the ear every week with transitioning military there about the wonderful opportunities we have for employment and quality of life here in South Central, if they don't already know, and connecting them to, you know, it's going to be internship opportunities, full-time employment, whatever it's going to, whatever form or shape it's going to take to get them to move over here. Again, I mentioned Anna is new, relatively new in her position. And then we continue to have a strong and robust reentry program, which you will hear us talk about here in just a moment as well, through a model called Putting Kentuckians First. And Aaron will, he will be the show and tell today to tell you all about that. But we've also been, so, you know, if anybody comes to our Kentucky Career Centers or gets services, we are technically supposed to enroll them and get a copy of an ID. Some of those regulations and rules were a little bit more laxed during COVID, just like a lot of things were. The expectation is that those come back. And so we have redesigned our intake processes to accommodate that. So we're seeing a whole lot more Wagner Pizer, it was what that program is called, enrollments, where we're providing just the basic individualized job seeker services and tracking outcomes for people. We continue to make resume workshops available as well. So we are dovetailing this also with the many partnerships that we have. One in particular with the Recovery Center this Friday will be their monthly time to come bring a group of guys, and they just come, and Aaron and Matt are taking care of them. I mean, giving them all the information about our opportunities that we have, how they are not to consider themselves out of the workforce just because of the charges that they've had or the recovery that they're going through, that there are lots of employers ready and willing to work with them and be supportive to them. So we're plugging them in. And if a resume is one of the missing pieces, so be it, we'll take care of that. If it's just the encouragement and the knowledge of all of these great opportunities, we're going to feed them with that as well. Part of our efforts working with transitioning soldiers is to do these Heroes Make America tours, and we've had a couple of those going on here since we last had a board meeting. So that's kind of field trips and show and tell for folks that are actively serving, but are involved in training programs in manufacturing for them to see and meet local manufacturers here. And again, tying in with the focus population, we'll have a job fair just for new Americans that we'll tell you about here in a moment too. But again, we're making good progress going into this year, but we continue to make progress. In Spanish, we say poco y poco. So yeah, poco poco, just bit by bit. So I'll let Anna tell you guys a little bit more specifically some of the details going on with this, what we're calling Network New Americans and Employers Team Work Job Fair coming up in November.
Yes, good morning. I'm Ana San Cristofol. I'm New American Workforce Navigator. And wow, this New American Job and Education Fair is a great project for us. And in this short time that we have been working,
that's how you do it right there. You just listen to them and then draw little funny circles.
that is okay.
Keep going.
Okay. Now, in this short time that we have been working in this new group of population, we could create a New American. New American is all immigrants that arrive here as a refuge or asylum or different kinds of immigration status, including the second migrant generation. So we could create it and build this kind of project where are involved different organizations, institutions, communities, community leaders. And this day will be involved around 14 different organizations, including New American student, high school, New American student, junior and seniors. That is in one hand. On the other hand, we already sent the invitation and application and different employers, you know, and I think we received this answer and the application and around 14 employers that will be, you know, and they are interested in participating there in this event. It will be in November 17th in Holy Spirit Catholic Church. And we start this Saturday, you know, to work hard inside of different communities, you know, promote the event and organize all the transportation, interpreter and other kind of, you know, the offers and benefits that we can offer this day. And
Yeah.
it's for us, for the community, this new community, this new group of, population is a great opportunity. And additionally, for employers, is another great opportunity to find a new workforce and work together in this new community. Any
Excellent.
question?
Yeah, thank you, Anna.
Brian, do you want to talk about how this is a little bit different than a normal
Yeah,
job fair?
yeah. So, for anybody, how do you do an elevator speech on what the Workforce Investment Board is or what WIOA is, right? Like my elevator speech is we're just matchmakers. But we steward federal and state tax dollars to put people together. And some of that involves having to, put people through training. And then other times it means, it's just kind of quick help and getting people to be in a space together. And that's what job fairs typically do. Employers still want to do it. However, with a job fair, you don't always know who's coming to the table. Job seekers don't always know who's going to be there. We're trying to be super intentional with this one. So we've done these types of job fairs before for our internationally born audience. And what we often had was not really matches happening. We had, people coming that might have had limited English and employers saying, well, they need to know more English before they could be working here. And so we're really trying to sort of screen for that. We definitely want to get the word out to the different audiences that we work with. So we're very invested, as Anna said, with a lot of community partners, about a dozen that are helping us plan for this event, be sort of the tentacles out in the community to get the word out about it, bring people to it, bring interpreters, all of these sorts of things. But we're asking in an application format, which you see on the screen here, we're asking employers to apply first. So we want to ask them, are certain things and factors, criteria happening that make it sort of supportive for people with varying and all different levels of English and work histories, right? And so we need ones that need advanced speaking English individuals to be there. We need ones with limited English proficiency opportunities. So this is being done very, very intentionally in hopes that we're getting the right job seekers to the table and we're getting the right employers that can have those hiring opportunities for them. So anybody who hasn't already, who is involved with a workplace, which should be everybody on the call, that hasn't maybe already filled one out, we encourage you to. We are going to have limited slots, so there's limited space. We do want to be a little bit picky with this, again, out of the spirit of having the best opportunities. So, yep. Any questions, feedback on that? Let your HR people know if you are not that person. We're accepting these for about another week. And then we'll close it off and then about a week later, make the decision and announce who's being invited. So.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Do we have some information on the New American population by county? Are they, primarily in Warren County or Simpson County?
It's a great question. The census data sort of measures by language. I do think I've seen some things that measure by nationality as well. When we say new Americans, because somebody might be a second generation person and speak one language primarily in their home because their parents were foreign born, but they're born here. But I mean, depending on their amount of English, they could be falling in this where they need some support and help. But yeah, it's Warren County is in our region the most, and then everything I've ever seen says Barron County has the next most populous, but it's a big dip down, and then it's pretty even among the counties after that.
And Logan County.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
We started to receive.
Yeah, Anna's been fielding quite a few inquiries lately from Logan County in the past month, and word's getting out.
I
Yeah,
think it's fairly safe to say outside of Warren, Barron, and Logan, the other 7 counties have a foreign-born population that is less than 2%. It
Yeah.
might not even be 1%. So it's
but however, we don't look at, they don't have to be born in the, or, living in the county to work in the county. So we have a lot that commute and are willing to already do. In fact, we're hoping with this one, we can rip them out of Northern Tennessee
Yeah,
and Purdue
yeah.
very aggressively, because that's what's done to us is they're very aggressively recruited in this area to go work those places, but they maintain a household here or in this region. So we're hoping this counters that.
So what kind of support is there for employers who may be interested in hiring new Americans, but they don't have the language tools in place? So is there something in place for that?
Yeah, but each, employer or company work in different way. So usually, because it's happened with the new Americans, sometimes it doesn't, answer the phone or don't answer the phone. So we are the connection between them. With the company that we are working very well now, they, for example, I help them or the American to make the application for a job. So we all the time we are in connection and say, Anna, for example, this new applicant doesn't, answer. So I contact them because it's sometimes we create a really connection between the employer and the new employees. This is the idea. And additionally, is the idea is, for example, is new American arrive here and the English is not very well, say, okay, I can find a job for you now. But the next step, if you really want to find a better job, ESL classes. So we try to create a plan for them. It's not only to refer for a job. So say, okay, we can refer. That's why we work as a team. We refer to ESL classes. We work with adult education, with Refuge Bowling Green and UIDA, and refer for them. If they need validate their some kind of degree or title, we refer the company that they can. So we support them because the idea is to find better and better job and of course develop the economic situation for here. This is the idea, is to support all new American, because officially that is my speech all the time. So English is not the only barrier, maybe it's the first one, but to know how the system works many times is very difficult for them. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would add, so basically, how do you get more aware of how to connect to this audience? Number one, you meet with Anna. In 6 months, she's picked up some secret sauce ingredients that I like to say. And then number two, we have been working with a third-party group that does professional workshops and some professional services for businesses. And we've told them, look, we need an entity that can kind of own this space of helping give advice and maybe going in and doing a review process, sort of an audit. I mean, it's not there to be like, shame on you. It's more there to be like, okay, we can see where you could, how hard would it be to turn the switch on, right, of this area. That's a certification we hope to call Welcoming Workforce, and we're working on new Americans and veterans for that, having like a local sort of seal that says you've been endorsed by a third party, that you are welcoming to these audiences. So we've already been refining criteria and helping give them ideas on this. In fact, that's part of what these questions are when you go take this application. It's a lot of those same criteria. So again, we don't want to say the workforce board, we know what they are, but we're picking up some best practices, and we're seeing, yeah, some common things happening. So
I would say Anna's placed a lot of new Americans with manufacturers in Simpson County.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's.
Yes, we closed the second shift officially because there are around 60, participants working there, new Americans. So
Yeah.
that is the same. For example, with this company, we work very as a team, is you need that, okay, contact me. I don't have any problem, to contact, call and help people, because sometimes it's difficult for them to, to make an application or to understand. The idea is to help them give the tool. They have to use the tool to invest in the future. This is the idea, not to make all the thing for them at the first moment, but in the future is give the other opportunities.
I applaud you on this program. I'm excited to see it really grow. And, as an employer, a lot of us are looking at what are the other ways. We do what we've always did. That's what we're going to get. It's what we've always had. So
yeah,
this is a great opportunity. And so
yeah,
I would challenge the next step is to help employers see it's possible. We're like, for example, my company, and I'm sure many others, everything's in English. We would welcome other languages, but we don't really know how to start to be able to do that. So I think that might be a next way that we could help. So
I guess my bow tie comment on this would be the new Americans as a whole. These folks want to work. There's not a workforce participation with this community. It's just a matter of where are they going to work, right? Again, Macy's in Tennessee and Purdue up in Ohio County are very, very aggressive. They're running circles around us in recruiting and getting our talent to drive each day to their locations to work. But by and large, our new American population, they want to work. They're not part of the workforce participation issue that by and large is going on throughout the rest of the region. So how do, we gotta figure out how to do better and get them into our workforce.
If they can, if they're willing to drive to Ohio County, they're willing to go to Edmonton. Right? So here's what we know. I shouldn't have said secret sauce. We don't want this to be a secret.
Right.
We're trying, you know, we can't go like tap into Macy's or Purdue and kind of know about their inner operations, but we see them present in our community at community events. They have booths. We see them, they're putting billboards in our in our counties on the sides of our highways and byways. And so, I mean, these are some of the things, but they've made the conversion years ago, and now they're just getting that steady pipeline, and people bypass our workforce system and go straight to them and don't even listen and stop to hear what we have. So that's what we're hoping we do at this job fair. Yeah. So like Anna said, we're gonna get high school students there. We hope the moms and dads comes, the grandparents, whoever needs to hear. Yeah. Thank you for that encouragement. Yes.
Hey, Brian, I hate to interrupt, but I think this would be a great opportunity or a great place for me to bring this up. We at SkyCTC in our Workforce Solutions Department have put together a cultural competency in the workplace customized training for area employers, where we're going in and teaching a lot around cultural competency and helping employees, leaders understand cultural competency and how it can improve workplace. So I wanted to share that because we are working on doing more around that as well. So I wanted to sort of share that with the group. So if anyone is interested or knows anybody, I just wanted to share that.
And I'll say too, Dr. Myers texted me. Thank you, Dr. Myers. We have received funds, actually, Gretchen and others, I mean, to do on-site ESL, to develop a curriculum that would provide ESL on-site, I should say, for SkyCTC Workforce Solutions to do that. So part of the issue is, if you have this workforce and they need to continue to develop their English skills or go through something before they get hired, what is that? What does that look like? How long does it last? What do you need them to know? That's what we need to develop. Because nobody else is offering that. So it's a gap out there right now educationally in our workforce system. And you can't, asking them to go get English on their own in their free time around a 12-hour shift is hard. What if we could bring it, closer to their space? It's been done in the past. This workforce board has supported it in the past, but we need a local curriculum, to offer and put out there.
It's very similar, years ago, you had a big population that didn't have a high school diploma. And so we had programs in place to help them get their high school diploma. We employers brought it to their employees in order to do that. So it's the same thing. They're willing to do it if it's convenient and we're in their space they're already at.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Adult Ed would be willing to come, So plug for Adult Ed. I know they would still be interested in doing anything on site with GD too.
And Brian, I'm not sure if you noticed, but Dr. Myers has her hand up.
Oh, okay. I see it now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, that's okay. And I apologize. I'm in transit, so I'm on my phone, but I don't, if it would be okay, Brian, this might be a good place also, since we have a number of employers on the phone who are obviously interested in this space, to see if there are, some employers that might be interested in joining us to give some insight as we work to develop the project that we're talking about. We've done it several times, but just like you said, what we're really looking to do is get even more strategic and develop a fundamentals curriculum that we could use for anyone, but then obviously to be able, as we are in Workforce Solutions at SkyCTC, to go in and then further customize it, whether it's a new employee coming in or it's an incumbent worker that we can assist with, or a particular group. So we'd appreciate anyone who might be willing to provide some input with that group.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
All right. Mr. Aaron Pointer is going to tell you about an exciting project that he has been totally kicking off the ground and spearheading. So this is going to be a statewide initiative, but it really has been born out of the state paying attention to his and Jana's efforts, and both the Cumberland's and South Central Workforce Board's efforts reaching the reentry or justice involved population. So Aaron, tell us what putting Kentuckians first, what that model looks like, and what it means for South Central Kentucky.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Brian said, this is a state endorsed statewide initiative. About, I would say a little over a year ago, we got notification that that the state was taking notice of what we were doing, kind of our processes, our best practices, and they asked that we would put together a best practices toolkit for serving the justice involved, the reentry population. And so what we've done, and then the thing is I share 2 regions. So what I've really tried and focused hard to do was to take best practices from all 23 counties. What we did is we poured all of those best practices into one county, where I launched a pilot program. And of course, this project is coined Putting Kentuckians First. We take a task force style approach with referrals coming through the justice system, and really, I mean, we are very high touch. It's the team. And what's great is for the most part, all partners that are involved with this task force are available, or some form of them is available in all 120 counties. But it was just getting them out of their silos, getting them to come to a common table. We have shared tracking and data. We have a shared MOU where we can communicate with each other. We can work on individuals. And so we are getting referrals from the justice system with a standardized, just general intake. And then from that intake form, we're able to decide what partner that we're involved with is better to be their primary case manager. And from that, that partner and all of us together, we come together every single week and we address what needs to be addressed, and ultimately with the final goal of getting every one of them into employment. It has been tremendously successful. We selected a county that had 1 court, 1 day a week, and as for the last 6 months, we have 115 participants. A huge number of those are employed, receiving services, and it's just an awesome approach to sharing this load of this population across all partners. So everybody, the tide is raising all of our partners at referrals and success stories that is going on. So I'm happy to report that we have the green light and the thumbs up that we did it right, and we did it to the standard that they said, okay, now take and start expanding it. So I spent my day, I think it was Tuesday, in Hart County, and Putting Kentuckians First is coming to Hart County. That's going to be the first South Central County that we're going to launch. Everybody was extremely receptive. They love the concept. They love the tools that we have set up for phase 1. And so I hope I'm intending on, and I don't see very much that's going to set me off this course, but to launch in November, this initiative there with the courts and all of our partners in Hart County.
Aaron, can you talk about, just mention some of your partners, like who you're partnering with? And
yes, absolutely. So at the table, and if anybody's heard of Senate Bill 90, this is a component that we are working with the adult education. The Office of Adult Education is overseeing, or division of the Office of Adult Education is overseeing Senate Bill 90, and they're a huge partner with this, because we're taking our best practices and pairing it up with some new legislation that's come down, and it's really helping them out. And then also Adult Ed is a huge partner with us in this initiative and all the great things that they can do. Of course, the Workforce Board, Jana and myself, and Career Team. We have our CDO staff that attends, a behavioral health and mental health and substance use counseling agency. Again, that's kind of the only partner that changes from county to county sometimes. But all of these things are necessary for an individual to have that full wraparound services, and has led to us seeing such tremendous success. And the great thing is all of this was started and kind of was really rocking and rolling when the legislator put out Senate Bill 90, and a lot of the components of this legislation were things that we were doing. So that was a really cool nod to how we have identified, and our best practices are congruent with best practices up at the state. Now, in phase 2 of this entire project, we are going to equip an application, an app on a phone, and really be able to offer virtual services, a lot of connectivity, being able to really tie everybody in kind of the same house. So we know exactly what's going on with participants and what the partnerships and our partners are doing with specific participants. Just again, streamlining that connectivity to them and ultimately to employment.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. What I'll add is part of the problem with working with people is getting them to follow through, right? Those might be members of our own families, our kids, but how do you, and you got something great to offer to somebody, how do you make sure that you're holding their attention? And this app, as Aaron said, pushing out messages, giving them prompts of things, but it's got a very heavy behavioral health component to it as well. It's acknowledging that there might be some, frailty there, that could be fragile. And so it really is motivating and encouraging rather than threatening, but ultimately this is going to be tied into the legal system. But it's, instead of people with, like I say, bulletproof vests showing up and holding them accountable, it's an app that's pushing messages out, and counselors and people coming in from the other side of the phone that way enable ways for them to even ask for help, in an emergency or something. So very, very innovative statewide, program that our own staff have helped champion and put out there and make available. So you guys should be very proud of Aaron and Jana for their hard work, because, knowing these individuals exist is one thing, but getting to them, holding their attention, and then getting them to follow through is a whole other beast. And so this is a great model to see.
Well, and I would add, I know that I talked for a whole lot. The thing is it's allowing everybody to do the job and what they are trained to do as far as our partners to the best of their ability, getting participants to them, and then allowing all of us to work together with nobody's hampering each other, or it's a collective shoulder to shoulder effort. And I've got 6 months of really good data and examples that this is the best practice that we've identified. So I'm very excited about that.
Can I just, so Aaron is kind of the public facing voice of this. I mean, and he's phenomenal. He's done a phenomenal work. Jana, wave at us, Jana. Jana is behind the scenes. She's calling people every single day, following up on them, checking on them, holding them accountable. And this doesn't work without Jana. So I just want to publicly recognize Jana, because she's in the trenches, doing the hard work. And so, not taking anything away from Aaron. Aaron's, they've both done this so well that the whole state has gone, holy cow, we need to replicate this, and we need to build out a statewide platform around it. And so I want to give them some kudos on this, and we're very proud of them.
Jana deserves all the props. She's amazing.
No, it's all you, Aaron. It's all you, big man.
All right. We'll get into
back to boring.
See,
Back to boring.
No, back to boring. There's no such thing as a boring board meeting. We can inject some enthusiasm here.
All
But
right.
yeah, we'll get into strategic goal number 4, and John will take this one.
Yeah, so I'm taking it from here. So again, strategic goal number 4 is really, I consider our accountability strategic goal about, us being accountable to the board, to the federal dollars we steward, us providing good return on investment back to our community. In terms of assessment, kind of following the way we've presented this today. We have been, one of the things that we've been working on we started talking about this over a year ago. We've put a lot of work into it, I'd say the last 6 to 8 months, but we've really tried to revamp and improve our customer service process. And we're going to present on that here momentarily. I've been working the last few months on the budget, and as Howard alluded to in his presentation, the budget that we get trickles out over time. We got our first infusion of money in late July, several weeks after the program year began. And any day now, we're going to get our kind of final infusion of money. So that really kind of hampers our budget development, but hopefully we'll have that here in the next week or so, and we'll know what we really have to work with, and then we'll kind of finish out our budget development for the year. I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about an initiative we worked on the last couple of months in terms of revising our employee evaluations. And you'll hear that that's tied to the budget, which is something that hadn't happened before. Over the last few months, we've been doing a lot of professional development down at the Career Center with all of our staff, our WIOA staff, our CDO staff. Brian has led a number of those, but we've had other folks lead them as well. But you know, we have had a little bit of turnover in the last year or so with our staff, but we're really just trying to get back and get back into a routine of professional development. Some of this has been tied, some of the professional development honestly has been tied to kind of revamping the customer service process. And you'll see, I mean, we've done a kind of a major overhaul on how we're moving people through the building, and that's required us to sit down and make sure everybody, all the staff in the building know, like, here's how it's supposed to work, here's the expectations, and so forth. You know, presentations to locally elected officials and stakeholders. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting out, making my rounds kind of county by county. I think we've reached out to most of the county judge executives so far. There's a couple I haven't reached out to yet, but we've knocked out 4 of these. But I'm rolling in and presenting, hey, here's how we used our WIOA dollars and in our activities for the last year. And then I really want to transition into a conversation about what are we going to do this coming year? And specifically, how are we going to address workforce participation in your county? And so I see Judge Fleener on the call. He's one of the first counties I visited. And I mean, that was how the conversation went. And so we're here pretty soon. We're going to be rolling back into Butler County to have a more specific workforce participation conversation with employers. And then finally, fiscal programming monitoring, which I was working on earlier. That's what our current assessment is.
It's kind of stuck on me. Yeah. It's showing up on my screen, but it's not showing. There it is.
Okay. Make sure I like further help.
I think we are. My face is.
All right, let's do the forward slide. Okay, let me talk a little bit about revised employee evaluation. Okay, this is really stuff, but at our July 14th executive committee meeting, we had a discussion that began about the budget, and then it kind of turned into a conversation about some questions about how we work with evaluations, are the evaluations are they tied to the budget, when we make decisions about pay raises and so forth. So it was a really good discussion, and out of that came the recommendation that we really need to take a look at.
They say the audio is freezing, but it's copy, so I don't know. See how my face is showing. Laid, yeah, it's the internet, it's the Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
it's doing it's on video and everything.
Streaming internet.
It'll probably pass just a moment, but I'm gonna turn my camera off. I'm not even doing that. It's listen, it could happen.
Even the presentation thinks it's boring. Okay, is audio any better, or is it still choppy? A thumbs up if it's better.
Yeah, you're coming.
All right. All right, so hopefully our internet connection here is stabilized and we can get through the rest of this. So I'll just kind of quickly kind of start back at our July 14th executive committee meeting. We ended up having a conversation that started out about budget that quickly turned into our employee evaluation process. And out of that came the idea that, hey, we need to take a look at this. And so I formed an employee evaluation committee that was comprised of Travis Shirley, Gretchen Bandy, Rebecca Stone, Chris Boggs, and Robin Eminette. And we ended up meeting 3 times to take a look at our evaluation process. And what you can see there to the right is, you know, what we've had in place for the last few years is really just kind of an old school paper evaluation. You know, per our you know, employee handbook. Employees receive a evaluation annually based on their data hire. The evaluation was really not tied officially to the budget. And in this evaluation format, each employee had 4 to 6 areas of responsibility, kind of based on what their specific job was. And then, you know, we would kind of evaluate them as either exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, or needs improvement. And so, I mean, the evaluation itself, it was okay. It's kind of antiquated, but again, not tied to the budget. Didn't, you know. So we wanted to take a look at that, and so this working group got together to help out with that. So if you could go forward. So in terms of, you know, one of the things we looked at is revising the timeline. Again, you know, a majority of our staff were hired in the spring, and so they tended to get their annual evaluation in the springtime, whereas our budget normally finalizes in October. And so I think that's a build, Brian. So if you could build,
Okay.
what we've come up with, and I'll show you the new evaluation or pieces of it in a second. But what you see on there is in June we get our youth allocation, which is one of 3 of our funding allocations. In late July, early August, we received the first, I'll say, quote unquote, 25% of our adult and dislocated worker allocation. And we're expecting here anytime now, we're expecting to receive the final 75% allocation of our adult and dislocated worker money. So, you know, as of right now, I don't know what my exact budget is, but hopefully here in the next week, we'll get it. And then we'll be able to kind of build out an actual, you know, budget that we can pursue the remainder of the year. So I say all that to say that, you know, as part of this revamp, what we're going to do is we're going to, all 9 of our employees are going to get an evaluation in November. And then what we'll look to do based on what our budget tells us, if the numbers are good and the budget suggests that we can allocate, let's say, I'm just going to make this up. Let's say the budget says across all 9 employees, we can budget out $40,000 total in pay raises. Then we would, based on the evaluations that would follow, we would come up with an amount of money per employee for an annual or a pay raise that would go into effect on January 1st. So that's been the general consensus among the working group on a good way to do this, a good way to tie evaluations to the budget and so forth. Okay, so I showed you kind of the antiquated paper that was pretty simply laid out in 4 to 6 areas of responsibility. And, you know, the employees had an opportunity to say what they did towards those responsibilities, and they would either get exceeds expectations, meets expectations, or needs improvement. This one's a little more structured. So, you know, what you'll see is after you get past the admin information, we wanted to rank them really on kind of 3 main areas. One is organizational attainment of our organizational goals. I mean, we built everything else around our organizational goals. We ought to be looking at our employees through that lens. Are they helping us achieve our organizational goals? And so the first area looks at that, and that's weighted at 25%. And then the next area that carries 50% is we're taking a look at what does their job description say. And so we're going to rate them against evaluate them against their job description, and that'll carry away to 50%. And then finally, we're looking at essential skills, and that'll be weighted 25%. But what are the essential skills for that particular job? So I want to say organizational attainment, essential job duties, essential skills piece. I mean, it's individualized for each role. So it's not one size fits all. We're customizing it to each role. Deronda's role is very different than Brian's role. And so Deronda's evaluation the weights will be the same, but the information under organizational attainment or strategic goal attainment, job essential duties and essential skills are gonna look different. And then finally, there'll be a section on, where goals and growth, where we have an opportunity to have a conversation about where the employee, where they feel like they need to grow personally and professionally, so that we can have a conversation about that and then set some goals for the upcoming year. And then the way this will score out, this will actually score out, and there'll be an overall assessment. So Brian, if you could go forward. This is going to be a very busy slide that you're seeing, and depending on your device, you might not be able to read it. But here's an example of the strategic goals section that's rated at 25%. But so for this particular, what you're looking at, I think this is Brian's. Is that right, Brian? This would be from your evaluation. So this is customized to Brian's role as the VP. But you can see goal number 1, goal number 2, goal number 3. Overall weighted 25%, but each one of those goals has got its own weight, and then there's going to be a rating score of 1, 2, or 3. Yeah, Brian's marking that thing up pretty good.
I have somebody else's.
Oh, okay. Let's go down the slide. So that's the 25% of strategic goals. This next one, again, I know it's probably hard to see. There's a section at the top based on the job description. What we've done is we're identifying the top 5 most important things on the job description and putting weight against them. So that's what's listed in the job description piece, total of 50%, with each of the 5 most important things on Brian's job description listed, weighted at 10% each. And then finally there on the bottom half is the competency assessment. So looking at the VP role, we identified what are the 5 most important essential skills or competencies that the VP of operation needs to possess. And you can see project management is listed there at number 1. There's a definition of project management. And then, there's a definition of what deserves excellence, what deserves meets expectations, or what's unacceptable. And then that will have carry weight and get scored as well. So we've turned it a little bit into an equation, but by and large, I mean, we're very happy with kind of the way we've progressed this. And I think those that have been a part of the evaluation working groups, we're pretty pleased to see the kind of the thought that went into this. And I'll take a moment to give Brian has done this in the past, and so when I described this working group, he started chomping at the bit. He wanted to dive into this, and this is really what you're seeing is his product. It's a product of his work. So,
Not my coloring though, Mr. Boggs. So I did something a moment ago to annotate. I've never done that before, and somehow I made it where I think other people can do it. So sorry if we're getting some stray marks on the screens.
All right. So I was a little long-winded there. Any questions about that? All right, again, riveting stuff, but it's important for our organization has come a long way in the last few years, and this is just part of the maturation process. What I look like, hey, let's mature, let's find areas where we can be better than we were. So that's a good segue to this next one. So I talked about it a minute ago. We've spent the last few months really trying to revamp our Kentucky Career Center customer process. And I just want to tee this up before I turn it over to Vernetta Douglas, who is our CDO and Career Center manager. But I'll just set some context here. The Kentucky Career Center in March 2020, the Career Center closed. They closed to the public. And the career development staff or state employees, they were told to go home by the state. Our WIOA staff opted to come in and work out of the building, but the building was closed to the public. And so for really a year and a half, the building was closed to the public and there was, it was closed for a good year. About a year in, it reopened only for unemployment. But anyway, in all that closure and all the kind of coming and going, there was a lot lost in terms of customer service and flow. And people got into different routines, and we realized that we really needed to shake this up because it was my assessment that we really had gotten away from a customer service orientation. And so, and then of course, there's a lot of conversations going on of like, hey, all these folks that are coming in for UI, what are you doing to put them to work? And, you know, Gretchen was holding me accountable on that, and rightly so. And, you know, and unfortunately, you know, although in unemployment, there's a work search requirement, it's not an enforced requirement. And so we said, well, if the state's not going to enforce it, what we're going to do is we revamp our customer service process. We're going to make people talk about employment before they go see somebody for UI. They're not going to have a choice. The state's not told me I have to do that, but I'm doing it anyway. And so, anyway, we needed to do this. And so I'm going to turn it over to Vernetta to talk a little bit about this.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, like John was saying, we did rework the flow of the center and we implemented this process. And Brian, if you have that chart pulled up, we implemented this process to make sure that we offer employment services to every job seeker that comes into the building. You don't see the front part of it here. We tweaked it a little bit since then, but every job seeker or everyone that comes into the building is greeted by security and directed to the front receptionist to complete the sign-in. And this sign-in is for accountability, for frank numbers, for anyone that comes into the building. But right after that, and it's a real short sign-in, I think it takes about a minute and a half. But right after that, the job seeker completes what we call the job seeker survey form. And the job seeker is working with the navigator at this point. It's not showing on this slide right here, but if you see right up under sign in, the intake form, this is actually where the job seeker is working with the navigator to complete this form. The information that the job seeker provides from the intake survey is downloaded onto a spreadsheet. Once that information is downloaded to a spreadsheet, the navigator assigns that job seeker to a career advisor. In the meanwhile, that career advisor is at the desk reviewing the information, which you'll see right there at step 2. The information is reviewed. And once that career advisor reviews the information, the career advisor will go out there and actually get the job seeker and bring the job seeker back to their workstation and review the information. And from that point on, during the interview, offer personalized assistance. And you'll see that in step number 3. And step number 3 and step number 4 kind of go hand in hand. But we are touching every job seeker that comes into that building. And you can see up under that, we offer resume services, workshops, hiring events. And from that point, depending on what the job seeker is looking for, we'll make referrals to our agency partners, WIOA, Voc Rehab. And I think that's, you can see right up under number 4, referred to employment and different things. So they are getting upfront employment services even before going to a UI appointment or coming up here to request benefits. So we are touching those job seekers and offering them employment services before they do anything else in the center. We do give them an option to decline the services. We just don't advertise it that much. They can refuse the services. We do have them fill out a form. If they just say no, you know, I have a couple of things in the works, I don't need help right now, let me decline it at this point and maybe come back later. We do let them do that. We offer that. But we do all this upfront and give them the option if they want to decline it or not. Brian, I think from the chart, we did move the Key Suite registration over to like the third step because the career advisors are doing the quick Key Suite registration now. So we are getting that information on the front end a little bit too. The only thing we're doing the Wagner Pisa enrollment once we start doing the follow-up, the case management, and all of that on the back end. So that's pretty much the flow of the job seekers. But like John had mentioned, we didn't have anything in place and the center was all about UI. I like 99.9%. So in this way, the job seeker comes in, we're offering those services up front. So any questions? I know I went over it kind of fast, and we did have a few tweaks here and there since we did this last one, I think, Brian. But for the most part, because I don't think we had the navigator part in there up front. But for the most part, this is the flow for the job seeker process in the Kentucky Career Center.
Yeah, Brian, if you go back, you want to.
Yeah, so in the top, thank you, Grenetta, the top left picture there, you can see what the welcome area sort of off to the side of the front desk looks like, that the young lady sitting there is one of our interns. Another straight mark shine.
She's a social work intern from Western that we're
Yep.
able to make an agreement with the social work department to sponsor interns there. So she's there to help navigate.
And if you squint, I'm not going to annotate because like these things are getting crazy now, but like there's a person sitting there filling out a form in the back there on a computer, but a lot of equipment got moved around, picked up and moved around. Matt personally, Matt Bacon, a lot of people there, Vernetta, Tony Gramando, a lot of people moved things, and
we uprooted where everybody's.
yeah, pretty much career team was on one side of the building and CDO was on the other, and everybody swapped places and did musical chairs. And that was a massive undertaking, but that was in the design of the flow. And getting them, again, if they're going to go to the UI, then they're going to have to step over people that have employment opportunities and flyers, and you see the TV screen. I mean, we've got that thing, Frank's keeping it updated with job opportunities. So if you guys had a new opportunity at your place, this is how we're getting it right there in front of them, which you would say, well, weren't you doing this anyway? The answer is, since COVID, no. So it really is a redesign in the way that present staff are used to it. Because again, as John said, we had staff leave, and so we've had to retrain staff, but it's like, look, guys, the good news and bad news is we can make it how we want to now. So you don't have to rely and go back to how it was at the end of 2019 or early 2020. We can make it a new and improved process all around.
Well, and I'll say it wasn't anywhere near perfect in 2018 or 19 either. I mean, this is a big improvement over that. But COVID kind of allowed us to kind of slide into some poor practices, if you will, right? I mean,
and when we picked up new ones outside,
when you don't
yeah,
see customers for over a year, you kind of lose your ability to do customer service the way
right.
you need to do it. And so we had to shake this up.
But we found new ways to reach people outside of the buildings, and so we kind of merged the two practices. Yes. Things like what Aaron and Jen are, what we described, Matt, what he was doing in his role, working with high school students, Anna working with a lot of people, where we've just tried to empower the center staff to do a lot of those kind of things that we've picked up too. Yep. All right.
Can I, let me just do one last shout out. So, people, everybody's a creature of habit. When you get your cubicle, you make it yours, right? When you get into a certain routine or a certain practice, that's what you like to do. And we really shook everybody up. I mean, we made them move. We made them change how they're doing their business. And I got to tell you, this would not have been possible under previous leadership, but Vernetta's leadership, Brian's leadership, Matt's leadership, Frank, our one-stop operator, everybody was kind of in unison. Everybody was in concurrence. Everybody was an adult and mature about it. And all the staff followed suit, and I just want to give her, like, this normally is not an easy thing to do. And not that this was easy, but it was far easier than I thought it would be because of just the leadership in that building. Again, Vernetta, Matt, Frank, Brian had a large hand in this. So just shout out to them because they really set the tone for everybody else to follow. And we're seeing much better numbers and successes, and we're getting more touch on folks than we were before. So I'm really pleased with where we are. Okay, let's transition to the next thing. So I occasionally, I don't like this. I don't like what I'm about to present because I feel like it's kind of tooting my own horn and I'm uncomfortable with that. And so I don't often present on the things that we're doing with Frankfurt. I mean, there's a little bit, sometimes I have to a little bit, but I thought I would today just because it's primarily my role, a little bit of Brian's role. But there's a lot of interaction that goes on with the Education and Labor Cabinet in Frankfurt. It consumes a lot of time. And so I just want to give you a little bit of flavor of what that is. So I'll just talk to a couple of things that I've been working on lately. One is this Ford Blue Oval project, among other things, but the state has taken particular interest in this project. There have been multiple meetings and it's been between the Kentucky Education Labor Cabinet and their counterparts in Tennessee, the Tennessee Labor Cabinet, along with, if you look there to the far right, that's Sherry Johnson. She's my counterpart in E-Town, the Lincoln Trail workforce, kind of in the background, sitting by the door. That's Secretary Link, our labor secretary. And there's folks from there's folks from KCTCS and both cabinets in the room. And that's just one of the meetings we've had. But, in Glendale, which is 60 miles north from where I am right now, up around mile marker 82 on I-65. I mean, Ford is building an EV battery plant, and they are expected to hire 5,000 people. In Tennessee, over near Memphis, Ford is building both an EV battery plant and a production facility, and they're anticipating having to hire 7,000 people out of kind of that West Tennessee area. Whether we like it or not, the Ford Blue Oval plant in Glendale is going to draw a workforce from South Central. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, Hart County is less than 20 miles from Glendale, and I think Hart County, Edmonson County, Barron County, Allen, Warren. It's going to draw, there's going to be good paying jobs, and it's going to draw from our labor pool here. And so we've got to be in the room around the table figuring out what does that impact look like, and then what can we do to prepare for that? How do we prepare our students for that at secondary and post-secondary? And then trying to figure out second and third order effects from this, which is a slightly different subject that I'll touch on in a minute. But anyway, that's been an ongoing conversation there. We had this conversation in the morning, and then after that afternoon, the Tennessee folks left, and then we had a conversation about the Envision project that's going to take place, which is another electric vehicle battery production plant that's going to look to hire 2,000 people here in Warren. The plant will be located in Warren County, but it's going to draw a lot of labor from fellow manufacturers in the region. So that's one conversation. Let's go to the next one.
Well, and just to point out, the fellow in the middle in the red tie there is the labor secretary.
Yeah.
Secretary Link. So he did visit us at our December board meeting.
Last December.
Which was 2 days before the tornadoes came through. They came through like less than 48 hours later. But there's also a gentleman there with his hand on his chin to the right of that. He's with the Department of Labor.
Yes.
So this was also some high level folks, involved in these discussions.
All right, just next quickly, there's an association called the Southeast Employment Training Association. It's an association comprised primarily of workforce boards and directors, at the state and local level. Anyway, they have two conferences a year, but in late August, they had a conference in Louisville. And so I saw it as an opportunity to get our staff up there for 2 days to sit through a number of presentations. It's a great professional development opportunity. So in addition to being there and having staff there and getting some good professional development to hear from other regions and other states on how they do business, we were also asked to provide 2 presentations on some of the good work we're doing. So you can see Aaron there with a big smile on his face, did a great presentation on the work that he's doing with our reentry and recovery population. And then the picture on the right was Anna, Brian, and I did a presentation on the work we're doing with New Americans in the region. And it was a great opportunity to showcase some of the work we're doing and share our best practices with folks with fellow workforce professionals across the Southeast and the Department of Labor. All right, a few more things. I'll start top right. We had the tornado come through in December, and there were 4 counties that were declared as disaster counties. In South Central, there were a lot of counties over in West Kentucky that were declared disaster counties. And anyway, so that came through in December, but it was around February when we actually received some special tornado grant money, and we received $1 million to be used over roughly a 22-month period. And that was good news. The grant money, the Department of Labor policy that covers this type of grant, though, is purposely vague. And I think they do that so that because they can't account for every type of situation. And so we took our understanding of the grant. We wrote our own local policy for how we will use those grant dollars. Who we can enroll, what we can enroll them for. We put together our own South Central grant policy, and we ran that through, our governing committee and got that approved. What's come up since then, however, is that when the floods hit Eastern Kentucky, rather than the Eastern Kentucky getting a separate special grant funding from the Department of Labor, they just tapped into this. And so Eastern Kentucky, which allowed them to get money within about 24 hours and start spending it. But what's come up is Eastern Kentucky has one interpretation of the policy. We have one. West Kentucky has a whole different one. So of the 3 workforce areas using this grant money, we're all using it a little differently. And so that's caused us to have meetings with the state and with the Department of Labor to say, hey, are we using this correctly? And unfortunately, we don't have a firm answer on that yet. I've been at this for over a month. These things are written purposely vague, which means even some of the folks at the Department of Labor interpret it differently than we do, or Eastern Kentucky or Western Kentucky. So we're still working through it. Bottom line, I want to make sure that what we're doing is compliant and that we're not enrolling people that we shouldn't be enrolling. There's questions right now centering around, does the person you enroll have to be from one of the 4 disaster counties or not? Or could it be somebody from outside of one of those 4 counties who wants to come in and do disaster recovery type of work, cleanup work, humanitarian work? We don't have a firm answer on. That's one particular example of what we're trying to work through on this grant. So it's still a work in progress. I just what I don't want to do is have our local interpretation be 6 months from now or a year from now, somebody comes down and say you shouldn't have done that and you owe us that money back. I don't want to put us in that situation. Let me go to LinkedIn. So the state has just recently procured, entered into a contract with LinkedIn Talent Solutions, and this is going to become a statewide platform for all the workforce areas. There's several components to it. So there's going to be, there's really about 4 components that we're going to get. One of them is called LinkedIn Career Page, and it's going to be a way, LinkedIn's going to create a page so that we can advertise our services. It's going to be a way for customers to find us, right? The next one is LinkedIn Talent Insights, and some of the HR folks on the board might know some of these tools I'm going to describe. But LinkedIn Talent Insights, it's going to be a labor market analytics tool for our staff. We're going to be able to get real-time data and insights to help drive employment outcomes. There's another I think the most powerful one that we're going to get is called LinkedIn Recruiter. And that's going to open up the ability to really access anybody and everybody across the country that are on LinkedIn and try to mine that talent. And so my understanding of the LinkedIn Recruiter piece is that, let's go back to this EV battery. Let's say whether it's us or Lincoln Trail, if we're trying to help one of those companies identify the right folks that would thrive in an EV battery production facility, LinkedIn Recruiter kind of has the ability for you to kind of put in those parameters and then run a search and look for those folks and try to find them. And the last piece, the fourth thing is it's called LinkedIn Job Slots. And this is going to be, I guess it's kind of like LinkedIn Recruiter, but they kind of overlay artificial intelligence on it. So there'll be a finite number of slots, but basically what LinkedIn Job Slots will do is it will look for those same types of folks that you put in the parameters that you're looking for a specific company. And what the AI filter does is go look for those folks and make sure that whenever they open up LinkedIn, that job opportunity is popping up right in their feed. And so LinkedIn Recruiter gives you data so that as a staff person, you can reach out. LinkedIn Job Slots is where it's doing it for you. It's using AI to identify those folks and put that advertisement right in their, right in their feed. So we've only had a high level overview of this, and I'm just regurgitating that some of the aspects of that high level overview, but it's coming, and we're going to have to get, we're going to have to receive it, and we're going to have to train our staff on it and figure out how to incorporate it. My assessment, though, is this is really going to be a good business services tool. It's going to help us serve employers in a much more robust way. Unfortunately, it was billed as an essential skills tool, kind of like Career Edge, but that's not what was presented. This is more for business services than it is for job seekers. Although there is a somewhat of a job seeker piece of this. Kentucky Career Edge, bottom left. Again, this is something I've been presenting to you right now. There's a statewide contract for Career Edge, but we're basically managing that contract. We're the pass-through entity for those payments is what it is, and that contract expires in December of this year. But it requires us, particularly Deronda, to, we're just an intermediary for these payments. MOU IFA. So another thing that happens, again, riveting stuff, but in any career center, you usually have multiple agencies and multiple partners, and so that requires a memorandum of understanding between partners, like who's going to be, what's the arrangement inside the building look like, and so that's codified in a memorandum of understanding. And then the IFA, that stands for Infrastructure Funding Agreement. Each partner by law is supposed to pay a percentage of their space in the building. So I say semi-annual, but technically one of those documents has to be updated every year. The other one is every 3 years. I just said semi-annual to kind of keep it short and sweet, but this is something that we're in the middle of right now, where we're working through our MOU and our infrastructure funding agreement. We have to work out these agreements locally, and then we have to submit everything to the Education and Labor Cabinet for them to take a look at. And then, if for some reason one of our partners, say Career Development Office, or we owe a partner, or OVR, or we don't have this, but if Adult Ed was in our building, it goes back up to the state, and then those funding arrangements ultimately get paid by each one of those, agencies at that level. Anyway, this is all meant to give you just a kind of a quick sense of all the different, or some of the different conversations that are going on, particularly at my level, that tie up a lot of my time with the Education and Labor Cabinet and some other agencies in Frankfurt. Ryan, let's go. Okay, we're almost through this. As a friendly reminder, I added this new section that I call Workforce Participation Update to our board meeting format. It's not something we've had until recently, but workforce participation has become such an acute issue across the region. And we've been so involved in it that I wanted to carve out a special kind of section to kind of report back to you on. Just kind of, just to kind of recap, we've been looking at this for well over a year. Last year, we did surveys. We did a whole series of workforce summits. We did 4 workforce summits across the region to specifically talk about workforce participation and drive conversation around it. That was last fall. In December, kind of at Judge Buchanan's request, we convened a workforce participation working group, an informal group of folks to just start talking about this issue. And we came together once every few weeks. And we did that December through, I'd say, August. And at August, I kind of shut it down temporarily. But he asked for it, and then I just kind of took charge of it from there. Because I feel like it's our purview. This is our conversation. A lot of great things came out of that informal working group, though. I mean, we got Mike Daly's position at Fort Campbell funded out of that. This idea of welcoming workforce and creating criteria to help employers better market themselves to new Americans and veterans. That's one of the ideas that came out of this. So it's been productive and it's been good. Now I've kind of shut it down so that we can reset a few things, and that's a segue to this. So one of the other things that came out of this group was, hey, we need somebody. We can't just do this once every few weeks. We need somebody full-time, laser focused on this issue. We need it. And everybody nodded their head. And ultimately what happened is Buddy Steen from Western Kentucky, he went out and got Western, and the University of Louisville went out and got a $50,000 economic development grant. And so they secured $50,000 for a position, and then Warren County Fiscal Court and City of Bowling Green decided they were going to kick in $20,000 each. And so we said, okay, that's enough for one. And we really wanted 2 positions, but we said we could only come up with the funding for one. So we secured verbally, close to $80,000 after. There's 90,000, but about 10,000 is getting peeled off because of parameters on the grant that Buddy got, but we've got about 80,000 to play with. So anyway, we pushed forward. We posted, we put together the job announcement. We posted it in mid-August. We closed it in early September. We conducted interviews the September 22nd through 27th. Brian and I we ran those interviews. We know who we want to hire. In the meantime, while we were doing that, I was still having to work out employer of record details. There's a lot of, initially everybody wanted me to be the employer of record. Everybody wanted to give me their money to run this, and I wanted that too. But ultimately, some of the money, the EDA grant that Western and U of L got really prohibited them from giving it directly to us. And so the arrangement right now is that this will actually be a WKU position that runs through the Innovation Campus. So all the money is going to them, and they'll fund it, but the position will still report to me and the workforce board. So that's the arrangement. Let's go forward a slide. And so this speaks to a little bit about this. So you can see on the left, the position will report to us. I'm really looking at this person that we hire, and I'm going to make the offer. I'm going to make the offer today. I'm considering kind of the research arm of the workforce board. That's where I think this position is going to start the first few months. There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of articles, and there's a lot of data out there about what's going on in the workforce right now. There's not a week that goes by that Forbes or Time or some other publication doesn't publish something on this topic. And there's certainly a lot of data coming out, and we need somebody to go through that and filter it and digest it and organize it and organize it in a way that can make sense, so that we can take that big picture data and start to overlay it on top of our region and on top of our counties and on top of different industry sectors. Ultimately, we want to identify root causes of labor force participation and start to develop solutions out of that. So that's kind of on the left. That's kind of how I see that position working, at least initially, is doing a lot of research and organizing data for us. Again, on the right, the Western will officially be the employer of record. We'll house the position right across the street over here at the Innovation Campus. There's a picture of the front door of it there on the bottom right. They've in kind, they've provided us workspace over there in a war room, a small room full of dry erase boards so we can sit there and come up with, solve world peace. And in the cool thing about that space is what they've built in there is a collaborative smart space. And basically anybody that's in there, if you're in there, you get to participate. And that space is really going to help us get folks that want to get involved in this to volunteer into it. I think we're going to be able to draw university staff into folks from the community. We're going to be able to draw in grad students. So even though we're going to have one person kind of doing a lot of the data and the research, they'll still kind of work under our direction. But we think we're going to be able to harness a lot of other folks to help figure this out. And they're at the bottom. I know what we're going to begin with. We're going to come up with the county workforce committees. We're going to what we're going to do, and this kind of segues into what we'll go into here in a minute, is what the data is showing us already is that out of our 10 counties, Warren County does not have a workforce participation issue. Warren County's workforce participation rates exceed the national average. The other 9 counties around Warren County, their workforce participation rates are 2 to 10% lower than the national average.
I did one yesterday, it was like 42 to 58%.
Yeah, it's so when I look at this through a regional lens, we got to work on these 9 counties. And so we've got to take some of the data, the initial data that we pull together, and then go in and roll into each of our counties, each of the 9 counties, and say, hey, here's what we found. And my goal is to, and again, I'm kind of prelude to what's coming up in a minute, but this workforce board is not going to fix the workforce participation issues in Allen County. Allen County has got to fix the workforce participation in Allen County. So we want to be able to convene conversations with data, with what we know, and go into Allen County and say, hey, we want to help you do this. And if they're willing and able and want to do it, we're going to empower, we're going to back them up. But really, I want to get each county to come up with their own workforce participation committee or task force. And we'll back that up with our staff and our expertise and our data. That's where we're going to begin this. But other things that we could have a committee for EV battery production. What is that going to mean? What is that going to mean to our school systems? What is that going to mean? What are the second and third order effects of Envision and Ford coming into the manufacturers that are downstream? Because we know, I mean, like it or not, our smaller manufacturers are going to lose talent to these bigger, higher paying companies. I'm very interested in getting a data collection committee together. Realty associations collect amazing data. Education institutions collect amazing data. Chambers collect amazing data. I would like to get reps from these different entities together on a committee to come into this smart space, and let's pull together a much more comprehensive view of our data, and help us try to figure out workforce participation and what some of the challenges are. So that's just a little bit of a taste of where we're trying to go with this position, and how we'll use it to form committees and try to solve this issue. The community that solves workforce participation first, this is a national problem, it's an international problem, but the community that figures it out is going to be the community that thrives going forward. And it's not going to magically come back. It's not going to there's a lot of data suggests that baby boomers they're retiring faster, and fertility rates are such that they're not going to be replaced. So we've got to figure out we got to figure out like what does the future of work look like? What is the impact of AI and robotics? And we got to look at those things as part of this effort. Okay. All right. Let me pause there.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah. Is this yours or is this mine?
Oh, I think it's still.
Well, we'll tag team it.
Okay.
Right. Go ahead.
Well, so John mentioned just a moment ago, the summit we did last year was focused on workforce participation. Honestly, what happens is a lot of times when we pull these summits together is we don't have a large turnout of our employer base. And so we feel like our partners are very engaged and available, and our employers have not been as available to attend, a half day or a full day a session on something. So we're looking at a shorter format. We're looking at something that will be springboarded by John's conversations of county performance in the past year. So when he goes and meets with local elected officials like judge executives and other stakeholders, to kind of show them what we've been doing, show them all our collective efforts, the WIOA spending, but also all these other outreach efforts and things that we're doing in job fairs and all of that. But then ask, can you convene a group of employers that we can get in the room and do things kind of like we were talking about earlier that Gretchen was asking about? How do you become New American friendly? How do you start toe dipping into that? How do you start, picking up some practices? And we've picked up some information that we think is best practices that employers have done. Some have followed our advice with the job fair things, or with even just how flyers are posted and how information is communicated, even how their Facebook feeds kind of focus on highlighting employees and their work. So we'd love to be able to showcase those and also continue to get feedback from strictly employers. So the first step would be John going in, talking about year to date kind of things that have happened in performance. Second step would be convening a group of employers. Third step would be, okay, now who will step forward and embrace the work of attacking the workforce participation in particular? What feedback do the first two meetings give us, and give this workforce participation lead, some focus area? Because we don't want to say, well, let's stop childcare and transportation. Everybody's gonna want to say that one. So I'm sorry, yeah, we have a slide here for the three ways we'll do this. So I mean, if childcare and transportation, which we know are big issues, are up there, if it's a matter of mapping out who are the childcare providers, if it's an issue of mapping out what does it take to become a childcare provider, if it's an issue of, okay, we turn it on, now what? These are all the things that have implications. And who's going to start going to that childcare center? What does it mean now? But there's more than just childcare and transportation. There's motivation, there's encouragement, there's people who feel, in our surveys that we collect from people that come to the Career Center, some people feel they don't have the skills and education, and they probably don't. Some feel that they have never worked at a hospitable employer environment, and they need a more supportive environment in order to go back to the workforce. They've maybe had a bad experience, sort of like when you date and you say, okay, I'm done for a while. There's kind of, there's things out there that we need to reach people, and childcare may not be the thing that draws those people to come back in if that was suddenly available. So that's a very complicated issue. As John says, it's like this tangled knot. We've got to try to start to, peel it away. But this is kind of the three-phase effort we're calling the Workforce Collective for our sort of version of the summit this year, as far as trying to get stakeholders to come together, not just for information and presentations, but to actually, drive some results. And of course, I want to assure our partners that are on the call here still, because they've been a very important piece to these summits that we've had in the past, and even help plan and organize heavily, that any of that information is not going to be left void from getting into their ears. So any outcomes, even these committees that John mentioned, that will be the way that we will engage the partners and get them into the fold. But we'd like to use the event-based things to really have the employers' ears and talk specifically to employers. So that gets us through kind of what we're trying to do here with
I'll just say, I see this, and what we're describing here, we're going to do this county by county. It's going to take us at least 6 to 9 months to kind of get every county and go through 1, 2, and 3 of what you just saw. This is going to be our kind of main effort for the next 6 to 9 months to get after this. So what time? I think we're close to. We thought we were going to finish early, but apparently we were way wrong. So any questions or discussions, public comments? Now's your time.
John, Gretchen, this is Regina. I had one housekeeping matter under the financial report, item 7. We had a motion and a second, but not an actual vote. So we need to take up a vote for approval of that item.
My bad, sorry about that. So let me go back again. say that again. Was that on the financial report that we need?
Yes, item number 7, the financial report. We had a motion by Beverly and a second by Cassie.
Okay,
And we just didn't have an actual vote to approve.
okay, so with that being said, I guess all those in favor of the motion to approve the financial report, I guess say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Do we need to do that for the internal audit results? I don't think I did it for that either, did I?
I didn't note that you did not, but let's just go ahead and we'll double approve it if that's the case.
No, it was, a vote wasn't taken.
Okay.
So, so now on the item above that, do we, we'd like to take a vote, all those in favor of approving and accepting the MCP CPA external audit results? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Sorry about that.
All right, we also want to mention that we are going to try to encourage as many of you as possible to come in person for our end of the year presentation that we'll have in December, because John has offered up food. So
Yes. We have not met in person as a board in a long, long time, pre-COVID, and this is just my observation. We got a lot, when we've had a lot of new board members since then. We used to know each other pretty well, and it's hard to get to know your fellow board members when it's all virtual. And so we will have you will have the option to dial in, but I would really like you to come in person in December, and we'll feed you. And really, if nothing else, it's just a chance to meet some of your fellow board members or meet some of our staff in person, and commune a little bit before the end of the year.
right.
Is that my cue?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have any further business? Okay, if not, today's meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
John, are you still on there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Will Cannon, Evanston County, and Scott's on here today with us, our Deputy Judge Executive. And for you and Deronda, we haven't forgotten about the meeting that you want to set up. I really want Scott to be involved in that. He's most likely going to be the one that will be here next year. Right now would be a good time for us to come up with a date and a time to go ahead and set that for Evanston County.
All right, I'm ready. You want to do it like right now, Judge? I'll pull up my calendar.
Well, I don't want to, Scott said just set it for any day, but I'm afraid Scott, are you still on here?
Yes, sir.
All right. What day looks good for you?
If